On July 15, 2008, Cindy Anthony dialed 911 to report a disturbing sequence of events. Her 2-year-old granddaughter had been missing for over a month, and the car her daughter had been driving, which had just been retrieved from a local impound lot, carried a distinct putrid odor. Cindy described it to the dispatcher as the smell of a dead body. The missing child was 2-year-old Caylee Anthony. During the 31 days she was unaccounted for, her mother, Casey, hadn't contacted the authorities. Instead, she had moved in with her boyfriend. She entered a hot body contest at a local nightclub, and on July 3rd, she walked into a parlor to get a new tattoo reading La Bella Vita, The Beautiful Life. To understand this month-long vacuum, you have to look at the environment Casey grew up in. Raised by her parents, George and Cindy, Casey developed a documented, lifelong habit of fabricating alternate realities to avoid conflict. When she fell short of high school graduation credits, she simply faked finishing. She spent years leaving the house every morning to work at a job at Universal Studios that didn't actually exist. George Anthony last saw Caylee leaving the house with Casey on June 16th. Over the next few weeks, Casey dodged her parents' frantic inquiries by claiming the child was out of town with a nanny named Zenaida Gonzalez, a woman investigators would later prove was entirely fictional. By June 27th, Casey had abandoned her white Pontiac Sunfire in an Amscot parking lot and called her boyfriend for a ride, continuing her social life as if nothing had changed. A child had vanished, and the mother constructed a complete, functional fantasy world to replace her. The authorities now had to figure out if they were looking for a missing toddler or dismantling the lies of a mind capable of chilling, absolute compartmentalization. The reality of the situation caught up with Casey when her abandoned car was finally processed. Forensic investigators opened the door of the Pontiac Sunfire and immediately recognized the unmistakable odor of human decomposition. Inside the trunk, investigators collected air samples and a single strand of hair. Microscopic analysis of that hair revealed a dark discoloration near the root, known as a death band, an indicator of a decomposing body. The air samples, tested using a developing technique from the Oak Ridge National Laboratory, showed chemical compounds consistent with human decay, alongside unusually high levels of chloroform. Any lingering hope of a rescue operation vanished on December 11, 2008. A utility meter reader named Roy Kronk was working in a dense, swampy stretch of woods less than a mile from the Anthony family home. There, he discovered a small bag containing skeletal remains. This document details the medical examiner's findings. The remains were completely skeletonized and intermixed with 2 plastic trash bags and a canvas laundry bag. Investigators noted a grim detail. Multiple overlapping pieces of duct tape were still attached to the lower portion of the skull. Looking at the official report, the medical examiner faced a difficult task. Because the body had been exposed to the elements for nearly 6 months, there was no soft tissue left to examine. Consequently, while the manner of death was officially ruled homicide, the exact cause of death was listed as undetermined means. With the discovery of the body, investigators had to reevaluate the evidence. They analyzed the trash bags, the duct tape, and the trunk forensics, and asked whether they were analyzing a calculated instrumental murder or a panicked, chaotic cover-up. The trial required a deep look into Casey's psychology. Whenever she faced failure, her parents often intervened, shielding her from consequences. Psychologists noted that this environment allowed her to develop profound emotional detachment and a severe lack of empathy. This detachment reached its peak on July 16th. Casey confidently led detectives into Universal Studios, marching them down the hallways, claiming she was going to her office to gather contact information for her missing child. She walked until they reached a dead end, where she finally turned around and admitted she hadn't worked there in years. The prosecution argued that this desire to avoid responsibility explained the murder. They presented a motive centering on Casey's desire for independence. In their view, she wanted a carefree life without the burdens of a toddler, leading her to premeditate the use of chloroform and suffocation. But Casey's attorney, Jose Baez, offered an explosive counter-narrative. He told the jury that Caylee was never murdered. Instead, he claimed the toddler had accidentally drowned in the Anthony family swimming pool. The elaborate cover-up, he argued, was the result of Casey's lifelong trauma, alleging she had been sexually abused by her father. When George Anthony took the stand, he vehemently denied both the allegations of sexual abuse and any involvement in covering up his granddaughter's death. The trial exposed the complete, devastating fracture of the Anthony family unit on live television. The defense strategy recontextualized Casey's history of deception. By framing her lies as an involuntary survival mechanism triggered by trauma, Jose Baez attempted to make her most suspicious behavior appear sympathetic. After 33 days of testimony, the jury returned a verdict that shocked the public. Casey Anthony was found not guilty of first-degree murder, aggravated child abuse, and manslaughter. She was convicted only on 4 misdemeanor counts of providing false information to law enforcement. This section of the medical examiner's report highlights a major obstacle for the state's case. Because Caylee's remains were reduced to a skeleton, there was no biological way to definitively prove how she died and secure the jawbone during a post-mortem move, introducing a layer of ambiguity for the jury to consider. The acquittal triggered immediate, widespread public outrage. While Casey walked free, the legal fallout continued for years, including a defamation lawsuit filed by Roy Kronk, the meter reader who found the body, after the defense attempted to implicate him in the crime. In a courtroom, the state must prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, but when physical evidence degrades into the earth and the only living witness possesses a pathological ability to detach from reality, that standard becomes nearly impossible to meet. The legal system reached its conclusion, but the actual truth of what happened to